Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Spicy Salami Spread. That's right, I'm going to show you how to make a very fast and easy version of a famous Calabrian salami spread called Nduja, which using the traditional method would take 3 or 4 months to make. And while it really is truly amazing, I don't want to wait that long. And besides, it requires using parts of the pig I'd rather not handle. But by simply using some sliced salami and a couple tricks you're about to see, we're going to create something very similar and every bit as delicious. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with my secret ingredient here. And that would be some sliced pancetta, which we will add to a cold pan. And once that's been placed in, we'll set our heat to medium. And we're going to cook this until it just starts to think about crisping up. All right, we don't really want this well browned and brittle, but we do want it fairly well cooked, where a lot of that fat renders out, since basically that's the reason we're doing this step. All right, not only is this going to add lots of savory pork flavor to our spread, but it's also going to help us raise the fat content, which is kind of a big deal if you're trying to simulate Nduja, since that stuff is like 50% fat. Maybe more. Okay, it depends on what part of Calabria you're in. But anyway, like I said, we'll cook that over medium heat, giving it the occasional toss with our tongs, until it just starts to think about getting crispy and looks a little something like this. And then once that happens, all we'll do is turn off the heat, and we'll let that sit and cool down, while we move on to the next major component, and that's going to be our Calabrian chilies, which come in jars packed in oil. And if you have an Italian market in town, these are pretty easy to find. Otherwise, you can order online, or in the blog post, I'm going to give you some alternatives. And to prep these, all we have to do is pull off the stem if it's still attached. And if we want, which is optional, squeeze out the seeds, which I do because it only takes a few minutes. Although if you are going to squeeze them out, don't do it back into the same bowl. That's not smart. And then besides using the actual peppers, we're also going to spoon off 2 or 3 tablespoons of this oil and use that in our spread as well. And the more oil you include, the softer and more spreadable your final product will be, as well as spicier, since these peppers are pretty hot, which is why I should probably be wearing gloves to prep these, but I didn't and it was fine. But if you're having a day where your eyes are itchy or other sensitive parts, please be very careful. But either way, I think we want to prep about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of stemmed and possibly seeded peppers. And then besides our Calabrian chilies and oil and recently cooked pancetta, we're also going to need a whole bunch of sliced salami. And I went with a mixture of 2 parts soppressata, which I will of course taste for quality control, to 1 part of what was sold as calabrese salami, which is generally just supermarket speak for a spicy salami. Although they were both spicy and kind of taste the same, so who knows. But what I do know is any salami is going to work here. So feel free to use whatever you want. I mean, you are after all the mommy of your soft serve salami. But for me at least, the spicier varieties seem to make more sense here. But no matter what we end up using, we'll go ahead and separate that a little bit and add it to the bowl of our food processor. And then we'll also transfer in our cooked and cooled pancetta, being sure we also add in every drop of that precious rendered fat. And speaking of fat, we'll also add in our Calabrian chili oil, along with our peppers, of course. And by the way, you might be thinking here about putting in something like garlic or scallions or onions, which could work, but I didn't, because I don't think it's going to last as long in the fridge. Plus, as I've mentioned, I really was trying to simulate the texture of a classic Nduja, which does not include those things. And then what we'll do once that's all together is go ahead and start pulsing it on and off until our mixture is pretty finely ground and looks a little something like this. And once it reaches this stage, we can add our final 2 ingredients, which will be some olive oil, and in a little bit of a plot twist, some room temperature butter. All right, we could go with all olive oil here, and many cheater versions of Nduja do. But for me, if we're trying to simulate extra pork fat, butter's going to get us a lot closer to that in texture than oil. And then what we'll do once our final fat's been added is simply continue processing this until it's as smooth and spreadable as we want. And I'm going to show you right here how smooth I wanted mine. Okay, I'm not trying to liquefy this or make salami butter, although that does sound pretty good. But what I'm going for is something that's very, very soft and spreadable, but still has a little tiny bit of texture to it. And you're going to get a much better look at this in a few seconds as I transfer this into a bowl. And at this point, our spicy salami spread is officially done. And if we wanted, we could start enjoying this right now, which I will prove by tasting some on a piece of bread, which, by the way, was absolutely amazing. And normally at this point, I would be reminding you to make sure you taste this for seasoning. But with this stuff, that's not going to be necessary. All right, thanks to all that highly seasoned salami and hot peppers we used, we should be good to go. Anyway, the point is you could eat this right now as is, but for what I think is an even better product, if you can, wrap this in plastic and pop it in the fridge overnight. And somehow, some way, those flavors seem to develop even more. So that's what I did. And then the next day we can pull that out, and if we want, transfer it into some kind of attractive serving container. Or if you want something like this. And then just for fun, after smoothing out the top, I decided to take a knife and go around making some indentations, which I think is going to provide for a little more visual interest. And because of the contrast those shadows provide, I think it actually also improves the color. Or it sort of somehow deepens it a little. And speaking of color, I went ahead and finished this up with one whole Calabrian chili. And that's it, our spicy salami spread is ready to enjoy. Hopefully next to some beautifully toasted or grilled bread. And if you're thinking this stuff just tastes like extra spicy soft salami, well, that's sort of true, but it tastes like so much more. This stuff is like salami squared. Right, that extra savoriness and meatiness from the pancetta really does magical things here. And when you combine that with the delicious fruity heat from those Calabrian chilies, you end up with a truly unique, intensely delicious, very memorable meat spread. All right, you bring this stuff to a party, people are going to be talking for a while. And while this will work wonderfully as a self-serve spread, you could also spread some on some toast or crostini and top it with some freshly chopped herb and maybe a little drizzle of olive oil. And that would make for a great past appetizer. Oh, and by the way, in the blog post, I'm going to give you tons of ideas of what to do with this stuff, besides just eat it on bread. All right, you've not really had a toasted cheese sandwich until you've had one with some of this bread inside. And of course, buttered toast is perfect with scrambled eggs. But imagine some spicy salami toast. Oh yeah, now that's a breakfast of champions. So yes, there's hundreds of ways you can enjoy this, and I want you to experience all of them. Which is why I really do hope you give this easy, spicy salami spread a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.